There is a radical difference between knowing, being, and embodying eternal existence in every moment. These are not stages of evolution, but completely different operating positions of the embodied soul. Knowing, it's the accumulation of information. It is the first step that shows that a soul is calling toward remembrance. Reading, listening, watching, understanding concepts, being able to explain them. It is the stage in which the human, with small h, says, I know, because I read about this, I've discussed it, I've heard about it. I attended a course or a seminar, a workshop, a retreat in which we've discussed the subject. Now, who says I know? Who accumulates this information? Who analyzes it? Who compares it? Who discusses it with others? The answer is the human with a small h, led by the interpreter interface, the one created by the false system. The interpreter is the intermediary structure that translates, compares, classifies, stores, and builds identities out of fragments of meaning. The human, with a small h, still identifies with the interpreter through mind and emotions. The interpreter feeds on information not to free the embodied soul from the web of the system, but to, in fact, refine itself as the interface of the fallen system itself. The more it knows, the more sophisticated and harder to remove the interpreter becomes. The more concepts it has, the more complex narratives it can create about itself. I am conscious. I am awakened. I understand. I see beyond what's visible. All these feed the human ego. They definitely do not transcend it. Knowing does not change the operating position, it only upgrades the interface. It is a horizontal expansion inside the same system. A lived conclusion. The accumulation of information does not lead to exiting the false matrix. It only produces a more subtle and refined interpreter. Being, or to be, is the second level, the level where theory is put into practice. The spiritual practitioner becomes one with their practice. The human, still with a small h, feels progress, an advancement, as an embodied being. The human steps out of the crowd through practice. Until not long ago, serious practitioners were isolated in mountains, in monasteries, in ashrams, in Lhasa, and they dedicated their entire lives to these practices. Shamans, Tibetan monks, Kriya Yoga practitioners, Orthodox monks from Mount Athos. They all reached great levels of being in physicality compared to a non practitioner. What is this practice based on? It's based on discipline, ritual, repetition, energetic training, daily protocols, anchors. Here's where astral travel starts occurring, clairvoyance opens up, clairaudience develops, and all the other human abilities. The human who gets to this level, still that it has gone beyond knowing. You see, this human becomes something different, something else. And with that something else, the old dormant human identity dies. The people who arrive here, they say, I don't just know, I apply. I live what I know. In fact, I am. You see, until a few decades ago, only a handful of advanced spiritual practitioners reached this level of being, of practicing. And yes, this layer brings a real difference from the first layer. It brings stability, it brings coherence, it brings a certain quiet and stillness. But there is still a major subtlety which has become clear recently. Still, the human with a small h, largely identified with the interpreter. It's the one who practices. How is this possible? Well, it looks like the fallen system adapted to the soul call towards awakening and found ways to ensure its own continuity. To be, it's a more advanced level, but it is based on a more subtle way of maintaining control. Until now, it appeared to be a necessary stage for souls in the awakening process. But let it be clear, it is still the interpreter who chooses the practice. It is still the interpreter who checks off the rituals, who tracks progress, who evaluates whether it is going well or it is not well enough. Yes, repetition strengthens loops. Ritual stabilizes structure. Discipline creates continuity. Continuity of what? What structure is being stabilized? Is the interpreter dissolved in this level? Do spiritual practices lead to the original structure, soul, experienced directly into the body? No. If the operating position remains inside the system, then practice refines the interpreter. It makes it calmer, more centered, more coherent, more energetically efficient, but still the interpreter, still a creation of the fallen system. There is no exit. Clearly, a progression is felt from the first layer to the second. To be feels more powerful than merely to know. Practice feels stronger than theory, says the mind, identified with the interpreter. Applying in physicality vaguely awakens cellular memory of the original model, the direct soul body experience. But even so, everything is still distorted. Through gurus, through masters, through repetition, through loops. The second layer is extremely seductive because it resembles freedom. It feels liberating. But in essence, it is a highly optimized version of the same interface. A disciplined interpreter, a spiritualized interpreter, a stable interpreter. Yet effort still exists. Maintenance is still required. Practices are still needed in order to remain well. So, what is beyond knowing and being? What is beyond more mental knowledge, more books read, more stories told, more practice, even through cleaner rituals or a perfect discipline? Beyond all this is the original structure. Beyond knowing, doing, maintaining, repeating, even being, remains existing eternally. Through dissolving the position from which practice was necessary, a new architecture is revealed, though in truth it is not new at all. It is the original one, the eternal flame. It is no longer about the state of the human with a small h. It is no longer about an experience that must be maintained through repetitive practices, without which there are consequences and repercussions. It is no longer about reaching the peak of evolution or spiritual progress. It is a fundamental shift in position. Exist eternally does not mean becoming something. It does not mean sustaining a certain frequency or maintaining a field of a certain intensity. It means there is no longer an intermediary. There is no longer a personality trying to be in a certain way. The body remains void of personal stories, many of them false anyway, of ancestral traumas, of emotional baggage, and void of mind. Life continues, yes, but only through presence, not through interpretation. Yes, the name given to you by others you may keep, or you may choose another. Yes, you can eat and feel satisfaction in the body, feel bodily sensations. But everything happens through living presence in the body. For example, you take a bite of an apple, you chew, you feel the texture, the taste, and you live the experience without any thought, without saying in your mind, this is good. That's it. When the layers of the interpreter dissolve, what has always been, it's revealed. Soul body authenticity, the original structure, presence without effort, clarity without intention, action without mental decision and without emotions, movement without control. When it hears this, the interpreter jumps in alarm. Without mental decision and without emotions? Robotic? Who am I without my thoughts and my emotions? I'm no longer human without them. I might as well be a vegetable. What kind of life is that? This voice is the interpreter protecting itself, binding itself even more strongly to the human identity. It gives the human the false belief that if the interpreter dies, the human dies too. This is far from truth. When you strip away the entire illusion, what remains? Well, beyond mind, beyond emotions, beyond effort, beyond discipline, beyond practice seen as noble, beyond everything placed on a pedestal and thought as good and valuable, remains the flame, the essence, the truth, exist eternally in exist now. Soul in body. No I.